I hold standards meetings. For those of you that don't know what that is, because this is the first video of mine you've seen, a stander is a person who is standing on his or her marital vows while their spouse is cheating on them, married to the other person, has a child with the other person, has divorced them. The stander is one who says, on my wedding day I vowed until death do us part, sickness and health, good times and bad, this is the worst. And I'm married regardless if you leave me or divorce me, because like Jesus said, marriage is indissoluble. Nothing, not even infidelity, breaks the marital bond. You want to argue with me on that one? Go ahead and post and we'll show what Jesus said about that in the original language. So marriage is indissoluble. And so it is likened, as I've said before, only if you can be unbaptized can you be unmarried. So that is the premise of my standards. As we hold our monthly meetings, the one of the questions that I get, or comments I should say, from them regularly is, but my prodigal looks so happy. How do I know they'll come back? I mean, why would they want to come back here? Well, first of all, I teach them how. Well, because A, you're the spouse, and let's change you. Let's make you into the man or woman you should be. Anyway, so that you're attractive. But let's put that aside. I really want to focus on this idea that your prodigal is happy, because happiness is very subjective, but there has been happiness research for thousands of years, going back to Aristotle. So I want to start with first, when you look at your prodigal, we don't want to fall into the Facebook effect. That's the, oh my gosh, look at these happy pictures of them on their vacation. Look at these smiles. Look at these hugs. Look at these kisses. Because everybody knows that what we put out on social media is just a mere portion of our lives, and we can fake it so badly anyway. I have done several videos here where I put on my happy face and then I go and I've shed some tears because something going on in my life is just so heavy. I don't even want to film some of these videos, and I force myself to do 3 or 4 or 5 and then just go curl up in a fetal position and cry about what's ever happening in my life at that time. So we don't want to gauge whether or not someone's happy by those things, but let's go ahead and delve deeply into what is scientifically researched. And this is where the rubber hits the road, because I say, you don't know if your prodigal is truly happy, but even if they appear to be happy right now, even if all standards would say, yeah, I'm looking at them, they're happy, they've got it all. Let's talk about what true happiness is, because it is such a powerful force. It is such a guiding force of our lives that in this country, the United States of America, our founding fathers actually wrote into our Constitution this pursuit of happiness. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator, love the reference to God, with certain unalienable rights. Unalienable, right? That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So our founding fathers created this nation and said, you have the right to pursue happiness. Your prodigal does, so do you. So let's define it. What is it? Okay, so if we go back thousands of years and know that happiness has been studied, let's come a little bit closer to 2023 and talk about the field of what's called positive psychology. Positive psychology is a relatively new field. It's been around only 50 to 100 years. And in science, that's short, closer to 50 years. But some serious research has been started to come about. And they found that there are 2 types of happiness. And they characterize them as hedonic and eudaimonic. I know that sounds hard. I will put a link to a slide underneath this video so you can see the bullets if you'd like. But hedonic, let's start with that. It's where we get the word hedonism from. So hedonic happiness, if I give you 5 bullets, basically is defined by this formula. It is the least amount of pain coupled with the greatest amount of pleasure. So I get, maybe I stub my toe, but compared to the fact that I have a beautiful spouse, I'm lots of money, my job is good, my kids are healthy, I have a nice vehicle, we go on vacations, I'm happy. That is great, right? Okay, sure. Well, let me talk a little bit more about the other bullets, and then I'll kind of delve into that one. Because if we use that first bullet, once your car breaks down, or your child gets sick, or your dog dies, or you lose your job, all of a sudden your happiness is gone. It's like, I don't have any control. I can't be happy. Which leads to one of the second bullets that I have, is that hedonic happiness is extrinsic. It's based on extrinsic reward. The things outside of me that I can't control. I can't control the fact that I lost my job. I can't control the fact that the stock market crashed. I can't control the fact that COVID came. I'm so unhappy, right? Just wait till I talk about eudaimonic happiness. So hedonic is, least amount of pain, greatest amount of pleasure. It is extrinsic reward. It is also considered short-term and fleeting. I'm an ice cream fanatic. I know, my friend Jessica tells me how crazy I am. And I could eat ice cream every day. I actually kind of do eat ice cream every day. But let's think about it. I have this bowl of ice cream and it's a new flavor. It is the best flavor I have ever had in my life. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. It makes me so happy. So I love feeling happy. So I want to be happy again tomorrow. So you know what? I'm going to go get that ice cream again tomorrow and I'm going to eat it. And I'm like, oh yeah. Does that ice cream make me happy tomorrow? Absolutely. Does it make me as happy? No, just a little bit less. The next day, even less. And then the next day, even less. And what happens is with hedonic happiness, because it is short-term and fleeting, you need more and more and more and more of it, and then you get less and less and less and less pleasure, which is why we get our foundation of addictions. People have to get more and more and more of a certain drug that makes it feel so good, but eventually they're angry that they need that freaking drug and it still doesn't make them happy. Keep in mind when I'm talking about relationships, right? This person in my life made me happy. Oh my gosh, I want to spend time with him or her. I'm so happy. But day after day after day, they make me just a little less happy, And you need more of it. And guess what? The mundaneness of life kicks in, and we are not experiencing as much happiness as we used to. So again, think in terms of addiction, because specifically when we're talking about affairs or prodigals, it is meeting the same parts of the brain where addictions come from, where the greatest amount of pleasure. Look, I met this new person. I'm not with my wife anymore or my husband. And they drove me crazy because they had all this flaw and that flaw and this flaw. And this person's got all these perfections. Until over time you see that the other woman, other man has this flaw, this flaw, this flaw. And of course the euphoria of the relationship is coming down. So last thing is the hedonic happiness is known as the good life, right? I once heard Jim Carrey, the actor, say, I wish everyone in the world had all the money they ever wanted, because then they could see that it doesn't make them happy. Buy yourself anything, go anywhere. He says, yeah, for a short time. The last bullet on hedonic happiness, it's kind of already been summed up. It's pleasure decreases and more and more and more of it is needed. So hedonic happiness is external. We can't control it. It's temporary, short-term, fleeting. It's material. We cannot hold on to hedonic happiness because it's just outside of us. So we become more miserable and we always are dissatisfied. That's what most people are going after when they leave their marriage, when they're seeking, right? And they go into an area that you're like, why do they not see? They're not being logical, but they're also seeking hedonic happiness. The opposite, what researchers have found is really the foundation to true happiness, is called eudaimonic. E-U-D-A-I-M-O-N-I-C. Eudai and monia come together to mean the highest. It's a Greek for good spirit or well-being, right? Eudaimonia. It is a long-term happiness, and it's correlated to human flourishing, right? As a human, I'm becoming this better version of myself. Aristotle once called it the highest human good. the highest human good. What can I do? Well, as a Christian, serve others, right? And that leads actually a little bit more into the eudaimonic happiness, because and I'm going to start with saying, when you have eudaimonia, your pleasure increases. And actually, based on the research, I should say when you practice eudaimonia, your pleasure increases. So you've got hedonic, where pleasure decreases, more is needed. You got eudaimonic, where the more you practice it, the happier you are. It just snowballs and builds on itself. Eudaimonic happiness is known as the pay it forward happiness. It is the happiness that says, if I do something for someone else, it comes back to me. It comes back to me. Let me just put an aside. Isn't that what Christ said? Isn't that what he said? Serve one another, wash each other's feet, love one another, turn the other cheek to your enemy. Jesus wasn't saying that because he's like, I just want to annoy you and I just want to make you do these awful things. God is so good. He's so good, right? What he was saying is, I am God. I created everything, and I just want you to experience eudaimonic happiness. Not only will you be pleasing me because you'll be loving your neighbor, loving your spouse, even though he's sleeping with some other person. He said, when you love others, the joy comes back to you. When you serve others, when you work at a soup kitchen, when you go through a Starbucks line and you buy the drinks of the people behind you, they won't even ever know your name. They won't even see your face, but something in you feels good. Because that is true happiness. That is true human flourishing. And whereas the hedonic happiness is based on extrinsic reward, eudaimonic is based on intrinsic reward. The more of it you practice, the more happiness builds and grows. Your pleasure increases. So isn't that a paradox? Eudaimonic happiness is based on loving others, doing for others. So if we come back to my first example of how do I know my prodigal's, not happy? Because prodigals are serving the self. Prodigals are meeting their physical needs, their sexual needs, their needs to be told how, you stopped appreciating me. And you may have, and you may need to fix that. And this prodigal, this person Satan sends, met that need temporarily. Oh, look, they tell me they appreciate me. They tell me how beautiful I am. They spend time with me and you didn't. They go watch me play my softball games and you didn't. They listen to me. We have conversations. You know what? All the stuff that you probably did when you were dating. It's just that with you, it became old. But when your prodigal is focusing on hedonic happiness, they're going to keep going and going and going and going. And it is going to get worse and worse and less joyful because they're not in line with serving others. They're serving the self. Sacrificial love is really based on eudaimonic happiness. We just had Good Friday, Holy Thursday. And we think about Jesus on the cross. Every single fiber. He was freezing to death out there because they were at the fire because it was a cold night. He's naked and freezing, which to me is torture. His flesh is ripped off his bones. He's on the cross. He's nailed. He has to stand on his nailed feet just so he can inhale excruciating pain. And yet, eudaimonic happiness says he was serving us. He was giving us something. And so spiritually, there was this perfect love, which is a perfect happiness amidst his sorrow, amidst his suffering. Your prodigal spouse may be with someone else. They may look happy. But you have the power to find true happiness. Because your happiness does not come from the extrinsic world. It's not based on whether or not they took your money out of your pension. It's not based on the fact that you lost your house. It's not based on the material things you lost. It's based on the internal. You can hit me, hurt me, say mean things about me, but I have the Lord, I have peace. I'm going to love you. That's why one of the rules I say is never respond to hatred and anger with hatred and anger. When your prodigal says something nasty to you, but you ignore it or say, you know what, Lord, bless that person. Show them your love. First of all, it drives them nuts because the Bible says praying for your enemy is like heaping hot coals on their head. I was kind of like, I could do that. Let's put some hot coals on their head. But as I started learning more of God's word, I realized I want to love them. My happiness doesn't come from what you do or say. My happiness doesn't even come, the very mature standards, from even having you back in my home. I want you, and I love you, and I pray that we're reconciled. But if we're not, I have joy. And I would actually argue that this difference between hedonic and eudaimonic happiness is the difference between happiness and joy that we as Christians talk about. Happiness is this fleeting external thing. Joy is internal. Remember, it's Greek for good spirit or well-being. It's the highest human flourishing. It's long-term. Because if we went with hedonic happiness, everyone in Hollywood would be the happiest persons alive. They have all the good looks, they have fame, they have fortune, they have money, they travel, they have 4 or 5 really good looking spouses because they keep throwing them away and get a new one. Looking for that magical happiness, that magic pill that they never find. But do you know the rates of depression and suicide and drug use in Hollywood? It's out the roof. Why? Because they're seeking it in the wrong places. You don't need anything that they have. You don't even need your prodigal spouse who you love. The Lord wants you to strip yourself of the desires, of the idolatry of wanting those people in our lives, but to be able to say, I'll take the good person if you put them back in my life, and I will love and cherish them. But if you don't, I have peace and love and joy in you, Lord. It is in here. Well, it's a longer video than I expected. Just wanted to put that out there again. Your prodigal is not happy. And if they are, it is absolutely short-term and fleeting. So for those of you that want to contact me and really want to know this answer, ponder that. Ponder that. What is true happiness? Because until they rest in God, they will be running for the next best thing. Not you. I want you to seek out eudaimonia. I want you to seek out pay it forward happiness. So whether you're paying it forward to someone behind you in the coffee line, or handing $1 to someone on the side of the road who's homeless, whether you pay someone's electric bill, your next door neighbors, and they don't know it, or whether you just love your spouse, pray for them, have masses said for them, say kind words to them, maybe send them a gift on their birthday or not, have a mass said for them that they'll never know was said until the day they die. You pay it forward. You love them and watch your joy increase. Now that is true happiness, and that you have full control over. All right, I'm talking too much. I got to end this thing. All right, if you want to go a little bit more in depth than this, give me a call, look me up. I am doing this in some of my seminars, so if you want to bring me in and get a seminar scheduled in your area, let's do it. I love teaching this stuff because it all points back to God. Okay, I'm looking at my clock ticking, and I wanted to keep this under 20 minutes, so I'm going to end it now. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon, and this is my mini version of Breakfast with Bacon, and I want to remind you always to live your life